When we came up with this challenge of doing Expedition Everest, you can easily see how, if we didn't have this backlog of rationale for how we approach things, you would end up with something like this, because the assignment was quite explicit. We need something, and we do. There's no lie about this. We need something at Animal Kingdom that is gigantic and visible and loud and fast and thrilling. We got to have all that. We have got to have all that. Any theme park needs one of those things. This theme park needs it. And on top of that, we want to expand the menu of animals that we're dealing with in this park to include mythological make-believe animals, right? So if you just strip that assignment down to its core, you could easily see how answering the specifically described needs of that assignment would lead to a deep violation of the underlying themes of the park. And so, of course, being compulsive philosophers, we didn't do that. We went right back to intrinsic value of nature. How can I solve this problem and yet once again re-express the fundamental values of the park, the intrinsic value of nature, the sense of adventure, and use a motif of realism? And after a couple false starts, we came to this legend of the Yeti. And it's important to understand we really were focusing on the legendary aspect of the Yeti. There's two ways they think about the Yeti in Tibetan culture. One is very pragmatically real. The Yeti is a real animal. He lives in the forest. If you're not careful, he comes down and he will eat your yak. He's like a livestock pest, like a grizzly bear. And then there's this whole other thing where the Yeti is the divine protector of the remote and sacred, restricted areas of the Himalayas, and they are forever pristine and never to be touched by the human hand and set aside only for meditation and enlightenment, and the Yeti is the protector of these spaces, and by default, therefore, they are incredibly rich biological places because no one has disturbed them since the beginning of human time. The subtitle of Expedition Everest is Expedition Everest, the Legend of Forbidden Mountain. Now, on the left-hand side of the screen are pictures of Mount Everest, which I find to be a rather dull mountain. It is very tall, but it's tall just as if you kind of dumped a big bucket of sand out on planet Earth and it ended up being tall. It's certainly not a necessarily forbidden-looking mountain. These mountains over here, which are at the southern tip of Tierra del Fuego, those are forbidding-looking mountains. They're sharp, they're angular, they're pokey, and so we had to develop a mountain ourselves, our own design for a mountain that could plausibly be a mountain near Mount Everest, but yet at the same time be a mountain whose shape connoted this sense of being forbidden. And that's an example of what I'm talking about when I talk about using a theme to drive the design to a specific point, so you don't have to sit in a room and look at 40 pictures of mountains and have a 3-day-long debate over which mountain is the prettiest and which one is the best. Forget that. It gets really easy.